welcome to the Jankyard. I am your host, The Treatment, and tonight we have something special for you. We are doing our podcast as a live video cast, and not only that, but we have a guest with us tonight, Sir Clue. Welcome to the show. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a possibility for a lot of things going wrong tonight. When you go live and you're setting up a few minutes beforehand, who knows? At the very least, this will be a testament to everyone as to how much mistreatment does for the show, because there could be a lot of awkward pauses throughout this, and you never know if Schmenny's going to fall asleep trying to get a word in edgewise. Fred says hello. So hello, Fred. Welcome to the show. So this little awkward setup I'm gonna get rid of soon, and we're gonna go straight to looking through the collection decks. But otherwise, how's life with you guys? How things? Yeah, honestly, like every night for the last several nights I've been doing something. Streamed your game last night, doing this today, doing the next episode of Schmoda Pro on Thursday. Did the collection streams. It's been a lot. Oh, just it might. That's true. He's got his 50 followers. This is a big audience. I love it. Oh, wait a second. The audio. I forgot. There we go. Wait a second.
Oh,
There we go. I think I get both of you guys at the same time. Try it. One of you
testing,
talk.
testing.
I can't
Yeah.
harmonize.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry, everyone. Oh my goodness. See, there you go. Technical difficulties. We could start over.
You saying sorry in a Canadian accent is one of the highlights of our program. So I think that was just part of the value promise
Make
proposition.
sure I say things like tournament. That's the way you say it, right?
I think so. Maybe.
Tournament. Yeah.
Definitely
Anyway,
the way you say it.
no, I say tournament.
Got it.
Yeah. Oot and a boot, eh?
Hey, I was trying to figure out which one of you said the other one tries to go 2 hours and you're trying to rein him in. I can't remember now.
Our
Schman
treatment
tries
wants to go 2 hours.
No. That's killer. He's the one who just keeps us going. Schmenny tries to ring us in, but it doesn't work. We just do it in post. We cut out all the ums and ahs and the heavy sighing.
Oh, you can't cut out all my heavy sighing. That is like an impossible task.
Yeah. Yeah. So Clue, you got like your channel is bumping. You got all these cool new art, I don't know what you call it, title pages, I guess, for all your games.
Yeah, I just trying to do a new little title page for each season or whatever thing that we're trying to do. It's just a little AI thing, so I can't get too excited about it. But yeah, just trying to make it look a little different. I think I need to, or I'm going to, get a little bit more focused on it. So I already had my first game of the Phoenix League 2 already today, and I got that posted. And I think I'm gonna try instead of just kind of haphazardly remembering that day that I've got a game, maybe just try and like stick to a couple decks and just see what I can do with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's my goal.
So responsible of you.
Well, I said I'm gonna try. I didn't say it's gonna happen.
No, that's what we talk about. Or like, play a few decks repeatedly so you know the ins and outs, you know the matchups, and you can actually iterate on them. I mean, you iterate like crazy. You had that one deck where you had like Mark 17 or whatever it was with a spreadsheet of steps and changes. It was crazy.
That's how he took the Realm of the Absurd deck from a meme to actually something competitive that people talk about with respect.
That's true.
as opposed to what I was doing with it. It's just iteration. It's the name of the game.
I'm gonna adjust us. Like while we're talking, I'm gonna adjust us live. Sometimes you gotta get crazy with it.
Oh boy. Oh no.
Yep. What I think a lot of people don't know about that Realm of the Absurd deck is that it was pretty good from the gates. Like it wasn't much to do with it. It was just playing it over and over again to take out. Like realize that you don't need. Was it the Guilders? Was that in there originally? Like
Yeah,
just
I had Guilders in there.
I mean, just kind of go all in. But that was like lots of tinkering with it. Just 'cause I thought it was a great deck, and I think part of it was because people weren't taking it seriously either. And I was like, well, I think this can certainly win a tournament for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I still think it's strong, even if people know it's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this, guys!
Yeah.
I'm getting fancy.
What's happening? I'm not watching the stream. Can
Oh.
you tell me? What are
It-
our viewers experiencing?
well, probably a lot of confusion and like, why is Clue so big on the screen and Schmenny so small? But you know, work in progress. Yeah, no, just figuring things out one bit at a time. Anyway, yeah, no, I
Oh, it's a trip.
admire all of your experimentation. I think it's really cool, for sure. I don't. Yeah, this is getting a little silly, especially since I'm gonna probably transition off shortly anyway. But whatever, who cares? You got to do it.
Wait, what?
I'm gonna transition off this scene into the other scene that I worked so hard on.
Okay.
I've been
You're
spending.
just narrating a video chat that.
Yeah. What are we trying to do here?
I'm just putting just three of us friendly faces side by side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the collection, right? That's the goal.
That's the goal, I think. Yeah, that's probably what we should do. Cover all those decks that we didn't really know were being played until the top 8.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Any headline thoughts about the collection and what we learned before we dive into the details?
I mean, I'm interested to know what your guys' favorite lists are. So obviously because we already know what the best decks were. In theory, it's hard to separate them from the players, but we know what the best decks were. I would like to know, once we actually go through them, what you guys like. And Schman, especially since you didn't play at all in the collection, if any of these appeal to. I know already what deck you would have brought, but what deck appeals to you out of the bunch?
Okay.
All right, so let's click over this chaos. Let me just see if I did this correctly. Whoa, there we go. Got it. Nailed it. So we're starting off. I'm just using Impossible German's website because he was so nice to put it all together, including everyone's stats. And so we're starting off with who ultimately won, which is...
Oh, I didn't know there was a website. Let me pull that up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jason Lindley, medium.com, Collection of Ashes.
Okay.
Jason Seth Lindley, actually. But yeah. So he's got all of them
Is he
compiled.
planning to assassinate a political figure? Is that why he's using his middle name?
That's true. That's how it works, right? Yeah. I don't know.
Hey,
Clue, do you have the deck list as well, or should I narrate like what they are?
That's what I was gonna say. Just for professionalism, can you share that? Just throw that out there on the media link if people are following along, just so everyone else can do it too.
I will put it. I can put it in the chat as well. So this is what I'm using. There we go. Okay, so that's in the chat, and I hope I don't ruin Discord by going over here, but I will also quickly share it in... No, my computer's going to crash. I'll quickly share it in the media channel. Yeah. German does a great job. Well, I mean, now he's writing everything about Star Wars Unlimited, but when he does write a post about Ashes, it's good stuff. Okay, so we're going through. I sent it to everyone, so if you have it, great. We're gonna go through Carl's list, who ultimately won in what was a really cool game. I don't know if you guys got to watch it, but it was very back and forth for a long time until ultimately there was a big turning point with a couple River Scalds. But the list is for the spell board: 3 Chant of Transfusion, 1 Lightbringer, 3 Mirror Spirits, and then 19 allies. So we've got an Anchornaut, Light Swordsman, 3 Old Salts, a Phoenix Attendant, 3 Herders, a Ritualist, 3 Scalds, 3 Shepherds, and 3 Sonics. And then only 2 action spells, Bloodchains, and then only 1 Consume Soul and 1 Sleeping Widows. And this was the deck he would have played at Gen Con, and instead he took it to win the collection. So what do you guys think about this?
We were talking just a little bit about iterations, and I think this is a tiny example of that. It's pretty amazing. I don't think I've seen a Herald list actively try and go wide like this. Like, it has a nice spread of allies, but then just 19 of them. You got your little guys, you got your big guys. The amount of work that the Raptor Herders did, I was shocked by.
Yeah, you can really go wide. I mean, the 7 battlefields always to me somehow feels like such a huge difference over 5 or 6. And I think I mean, just in terms of the coolest play of that finals match was when he used ceremonial recursion to bring back a Sonic Swordsman so that he could then immediately use it with River Scald. I think he killed off, it was either a bear or a turtle, but still, it was a play that I
think it was a
never would have thought of. Yeah, so a 1 die, like, just crazy.
Yep. Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah, so I've been coding these games, many of them going back through the game logs and analyzing them. And I think the thing that really stands out about Brian's games is just how many turns he is 2-for-1ing his opponent. So adding a unit of his own and removing something. And it's not just the Old Salt and Scald turns, which is already quite a lot. It's also because the chance of transfusion are with free dice, enabling him with side actions to remove things dice free as he's playing things. And so he consistently runs this massive advantage in terms of units removed over his opponents. So in the top 8 round against Wavesy, he built a 7-unit advantage. He against Brian, he ultimately just swung with 1 Mirror Spirit, but it was a 6 damage Mirror Spirit because he'd swung with a whole board that was then exhausted. And Brian knocked it down to 5. But it was still enough for lethal in the end. And that was because he had a 6-unit advantage in units removed. So he removed 6 more of Brian's units than Brian removed of his. And that's despite, I think Brian had a couple of just massive Nature's Wraths, and still had that advantage. So yeah, I think Carl's decks, that deck is just extremely powerful, essentially in the action economy and dice economy of removal that it presents. And he does it, as you mentioned, with basically no healing. And that's the other interesting element, is that he often, in a couple games, both against Wavesy and then in the finals, he ran a health deficit for much of the game and then just turns it around at the end because he uses this, he's losing more health, generally not healing the way a Herald would, but he's building up a board advantage that he then uses to convert into a win. So I don't know if you all would characterize his deck in a particular way, but I think saying that it's something like a control wide swing deck would be how I'd describe it.
The two other things that I really would point out about this deck for sure is one, the three spell slots, and only two of them are for summons. And arguably, the Lightbringer is more of a utility. Like, that's not doing work besides just trying to distract, exhaust your opponent's unit. And then with just the two action spells that act as your removal in the self board clear, if you count it up with the Anchor Nut, three Scalds, three, what is it, Old Salts, that's 7 removal, right? It's ping damage for the most part, except for the Scald, whatever you get off of it, but it also gives you that body. And it's just, you said exactly right, just the economy of these, then throw your chance on top of it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too that there is very little self clear in this deck. And like you think 19 units, not to mention if you end up getting focused mirror spirits and you use the focus ability, those can be dead units just sitting there, like 0 attack. And yet he still just managed to consistently put more and more pressure down. It was really fascinating. I didn't think that 2 blood chains would be enough. And I don't know if how true this is, but this was a list that Brian said he originally took from me, modified it, and then Carl took it from him. And at least in my version, there was a guilt link to sort of help with that self clear. But the chain of transfusion is instead. So it's really cool.
I think the Lightbringer is essentially his self clear. Like, he's making his opponent swing into things with the Lightbringer, and he will basically never guard his units, or very, very rarely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in some way his self clear.
It's a really cool list. All right, we're good to go to the next one.
Sure.
Yeah. So the next on the list is not Brian's. I'm just going, like I said, in order on German's website. We've got Matt Bauer's list, which is an Odette list called Altered Beast, and its ceremonial charm nature. It has 1 Chant of Transfusion, a Frostback Bear, and a Gilder, 10 allies between a Beast Tamer, Blood Archer, 2 Hammer Knights, 3 Old Salts, 2 Phoenix Attendant, and a Ritualist, and then 5 alterations, 2 Infuriate, which is super cool, a Root Armor, 2 Wallops, and then action spells are Call Upon the Realms, 2 Clashing Tempers, a Seeds, 3 Sword of Virtue, and then he's got 2 Veils and 3 Ice Traps as the reaction suite. What do you think?
It definitely comes out looking more like your more traditional Odette list, I think. You got more knights in there. Sticking with just the 2 summons. Your Gilder is your utility. Your Frostback Bear does all the heavy work. Chant for your ping damage. I haven't seen this list. I haven't taken a look at these at all as of yet. The Infuriates are crazy pants to me. Like, I assume it's for the bear to get in there for that 4 swing, right?
Most likely.
So yeah. I watched Matt play a game. I think it was in the group stage, and the fact that I wasn't competing in the collections meant that I could spectate it, and it was the most bonkers game of Ashes I've seen in a really long time. And he used Infuriate as a removal spell in one really crucial situation in that game. So he basically pinned his opponent's unit down. It was a 2 health unit. I forget what it was. Yeah, just pinned it, and it's just like, you can't swing with that again. And I thought that was super cool. I agree, it's a bit off the wall, but I think it's really interesting in a meta that has 2 health units that your opponent is trying to use as threats. I think meta is generally not in that place right now because of the prevalence of Ice Trap, but it's got an interesting way in which it in some ways is actually even more effective than Ice Trap against those 2 health units, because now you're forcing your opponent. It's more effective if you don't care about swinging over the top. Let me put it that way, because it can still be used as a blocker. But the fact that it just uses a battlefield slot, forces a battlefield slot occupied indefinitely until your opponent decides to self-clear it, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting because the match that I saw and commentated on was between him. It was a mirror match, effectively, between the Odettes of him and Underrug Swept, which is the next deck list. And it seemed like Matt's the two issues that came up were that he had to keep using Enter the Fray to keep on top of removal, and so obviously that cost him health. And there's nothing really here to help heal and recuperate. And then Gilder just wasn't able to do anything. And when you're in a Frostback Bear meta or otherwise against Underrug with Hydra, it was kind of dead. So he was really depending on the draw of allies, and it seemed that 10 just wasn't enough. But I mean, this is the type of list I feel like I would build because I think it's solid, right? It feels like a good stuff deck, and obviously he made top 8 with it, so definitely a good deck. But I don't know. I guess it might need one more flex for the spell board, I think.
I don't know, man. I don't know how you argue with a top 4 finish. I
That's
I
true.
hear the idea about trying to tinker.
The deck may not. I think it may not be the deck so much as the matchups, and I think the matchup it faced. I mean, there was some luck in that draw that in that game that Underrug Swept had the Golden Veil in hand that Matt, I think, didn't draw into like a second Sword of Virtue once he tried to sword the Massive Growth Bear away. So there was definitely some luck involved in Underrug Swept getting that particular Massive Bear through for lethal. I think we could debate whether he would have gotten another chance later in the game, but yeah, that was a game where, again, and sort of just working through the analysis, you can really see just how much spin Matt is doing to try and produce blockers. Like the amount of dice expenditure he's using to get to attack blockers on the field to try and stop the Massive Growth Bear is pretty enormous, and he's not doing basically anything else because he can't afford to, or it'll be, it'll threaten lethal pretty quickly. And I think that's when I started playing Ashes, Massive Growth Bears was like the thing, and it's still fun to see it come back because it still has the potential to be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it as much now with Wallop because it's a little bit slower, but it's when you do see it's hard to remove it. I mean, that's how Underrug crushed me as well. Like I just couldn't deal with a Massive Bear, and backed by all the removal that Odette naturally has, it's a really solid suite. Odette's great. I should go back to playing her more. I did a lot of games with her originally, but this deck is good. We got, let's see, we got some comments from Fred. He was talking about, or he was responding to you, Shmen. He's saying you spend an action. It's not a fair tempo trade. I think this was about Infuriate. You spend an action on the spell, and they spend an action to clear the unit by attacking. Not any better or worse than Ice Trap, just more vulnerable to the opponent removing it, removing the Infuriate, or putting an alteration on the infuriated unit to turn it into a beneficial tool. I assume he means buffing the health with, say, root armor in order to still make the swing possible. Anyway,
Yeah.
And then Waves was just saying Massive Growth could be a nice use for Red Flower in someone like Rin or Lulu. I know how much you hate Red Flower, but maybe Clue has a different take on that.
I haven't played around a ton with Red Flower as of yet. I can see its benefits. I think it's pretty cool, but every time I try and fit it in, I need to remember that it also gets rid of your own alterations that you put on there. So it keeps not working the way I want it to work.
It removes the alteration? I don't think I even
you
understood
lose the
that.
alteration. You lose the status tokens. So it sucks on something
I thought
like
I cleared
Snake.
everything. Well, here.
Yeah, we can pull it up.
Find
But
out.
Waves just saying that he was, or sorry, who's Ashes? Oh, it's got to be Chaos Theory or German. I was surprised he didn't take Odette Treatment. She was really the spark of your. Yeah, yeah, I know. Uh, I don't
Look,
know.
let's not get treatment off on a
We're gonna come to my list.
trail of grievances.
There's a lot of them. All right, let's go on to Under Rugs list.
Wait, did you make top 8?
No, I
Yeah,
so
so we're not going to get to your list.
no, we're going through. We'll go through the list.
We're going through all of them? Okay.
Well, we might as
Oh
well.
man.
We'll see
Not at
because
this rate.
some of them are spicy. All right, Under Rugs, Terror and Virtue, Frostback Bear, Gilder, Lightbringer. Only 3 allies: Raptor Herder, 2 Sonics, and then 3 Massive, 2 Golds, 2 Wraths, 3 Hydras, the Sword of Virtues, called, and then 11 reactions, which is very interesting. Like very different than the other lists. 2 Call to Action, 2 Crescendos, 3 Veils, 2 Ice Trap, 2 Sympathy Pain. So this list is very much like get 1, maybe 2 punches in, and then finish with burn.
This deck is 100% the deck that I would look at on a list like this and just be like, oh, that's someone that just started playing and they love all the big stuff. But that's not true, because looking at it, there's one thing that really stands out to me. Like the Hydra giant bear combo is fun to do, obviously, but check it out. That's 11 reactions. There's no new player that's throwing 11 reactions into a deck and just hoping that it all comes together and just like bracing with only 3 allies. It is a tremendous amount of respect for him going the distance with this list. The amount of like I don't know. I don't know how I did it. The amount of patience to be able to time out how to get his big dudes into play and just roll with it. They're just fantastic. I don't think I could pilot this list, and I'm impressed how well he did.
Yeah, I looked at this list and I would be too scared to run it on only 3 allies and 3 books, 2 of which are effectively not like they're not going to get any damage through. The Gilder's there to protect your big thing, and Lightbringer's going to die right away. So it's I don't know. It scares me that this list like was so effective because to me it's just like it doesn't compute with how I deck build.
Yeah, I think I think this deck demonstrates the power of really deeply understanding your win con and the board state that's required to make that win con a reality. And we were talking yesterday, Treatment, Killer Cactus, and I about the Trick or Treat casual event finals that I played against Fred, and like I'm never gonna be able to watch that video replay because
I worked so hard
I made
on
like
it.
a boneheaded pass, and I just don't want to hear Treatment criticize me. But I think the bigger issue was that like I didn't go into that game with a really clear idea of what my win con was. Like I hadn't really decided, am I the beatdown, or what exactly is like the winning swing? Is it going to be a bottom of the round, top of round swing combination? And how do I engineer that situation to come to pass? And I think that is the crucial element here, that Underrug Swept, like he really understands how this deck wins, and he has engineered a deck to create that situation as frequently as possible. I agree with you. Like I also would not know how to pilot this deck. I mean, the deck I was playing was a Killer Cactus dual series for beginner players, and I couldn't figure out what the win con was a particular matchup. And this is like, 301, 401 level Ash's graduate school here.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I guess the part of the thing, and this goes with the other decks I look, whether it's your lists that you put together, Clue, or lists that I see Red King put together. Anytime I see something that's out of my comfort zone, I know that at some point I'm gonna have to find time to play it, but that's also part of why I've really been enjoying cooperative deck building with different people, because it does push you in ways where you're like, your safety cards or the way that you tend to like building, and they're like, no, let's try this instead. And sometimes you really find something that either fits your playstyle much better, or you find something that you didn't think was possible or would work, and then it's a lot of fun. Let's move on to the next list, which is Shadow's list, Shadowfire. So his was honestly something more akin to what I expected to see a lot of in the collection, given the sort of the talk about Wolfpack Leader. So he's got a Koji list. This is his double vision deck, and it's all of the cards that put out multiple units. So he's got Guilt Link, Miss Spirit, and Sally as the books, and then he's got 3 ofs, Huntmaster, Herder, Rising Horde, Wolfpack Leader, and then 3 Call Upon the Realms, 3 Tempers, 2 Festers, 2 Typhoons, 3 Widows, and 2 Sympathy Pains. So this was all just like swarm the board, and it got him far. Ultimately losing to Brian. I don't remember which was it, top 8 or top 4. I think it was top 8, but he had a great run with it. And even if you see it coming, and even if you have Nature's Wrath, it's hard to keep up with this many units. Like, it's crazy. It's a lot of units round 1. I think it's something like at least 12 units.
This deck might be my favorite deck to make top 8, I think. It's unusual because you don't see Miss Spirits that often, right? The Guild Link makes total sense, but he doesn't have enough other removal, or it doesn't look like he's got enough other removal in there to make Guild Link viable. Just a little bit of burn to get into the top 8 with this deck is tremendous. There's only 2 other things I want to look at here. It's the second deck in there with Clashing Tempers ×3. That card, I think, is low-key the defining card of the nature set. And also, I think this also proves with this deck is that there's no such thing as meta right now for this tournament. Is that, like you said, you expected to see more because the Wolfpack Leader is such a beast. But this was the only deck that I was in, right? But Shadowfire did an awesome job putting this together and making it work.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. But I mean, he does have. I don't know the other lists off the top of my head, but I mean, he actually has Festers, and he has the one-sided board clears with Miss Typhoon, which Fred is it Fred? No, it's Waves said it pairs nicely with Guilt Link. So he does have the ability to remove and then just slam bodies and buff the small things with Clashing Tempers. I don't even remember the game now. I can't remember if he said he made a couple mistakes or if it was Brian's crazy blood brawls that he kept pulling out of every time he needed it to wipe the board. But yeah, it's a cool list. What do you think, Schmen?
I think it's a very cool list. I think Brian only played 1 blood brawl in that game to kill a Wolfpack Leader. So it was good, but I think it only did 1 damage. It was the 1 damage he needed. It was just a situation where, Harold's battlefield control and the vulnerability of those 1-butts, as Clue would say, to like old salt pings is a challenge. I think he also had Adaptodon pinging available as well. Brian's Herald did. And then I think when I analyzed the game, I realized Brian had swung the same Frostback Bear 3 times in like 4 turns or something like that, because he had the battlefield control. He swung it at the bottom of a round twice with Adrenaline Rush, and then swung it again at the top of the next round. And that's another situation where you get a beefy threat like that, and you're playing an opponent who's pretty low to the ground, like that deck is, and you can put some damage up rapidly.
Yeah, yeah, and Chain of Transfusion I think was also what Brian played as well. So between that, the Adaptodon,
Yeah, I think he first
and the
fived
Old
it in that
Salt,
match.
it's a
First,
lot.
first five virtualist.
Yeah, it's a lot of removal. Still, I mean, this is a list that I would be comfortable handing off to a newer player because it's just sort of the basics of like, here's a bunch of units, focus on battlefield control. You don't have to really worry. I mean, it's 4 dice spread, but it's not that hard, and you have a lot of flexibility in being able to recur things. But it's cool,
And
and it took them.
Shadowfire is the only person I know I've played against that's run Wolfpack leader. So
Really?
it's yeah.
Wow,
That's crazy.
that is crazy.
You should let's play sometime. I'll run Carl's Creeper Fallen Koji deck.
Okay.
Speaking of no
It's
meta,
an edifying experience.
Yeah. All right, we got another top deck here. We've got Killer's list. So he's not here to bemoan, so we can just trash talk him. Turn off your brain and hope for the best. This was a top 4 deck. I lost to Carl on a missed Void Pulse or an incorrect Void Pulse, but otherwise it's a solid deck. He totally has the ability to take it to the finals. It's scary how fast this can swing because it's got Lightbringer, Mirror Spirit, Vampire Bat Swarm, 3 Fire Archers, a Huntmaster, 2 Old Salts, 3 Herders, and then 2 Chains, a Clashing Tempers, 2 Molten Gold, a Wrath, and then again another big reaction list. So on top of the 3 Void Pulse, you've got 3 Final Cries and 3 Sympathy Pains for all the burn, and then 2 Widows and an Ice Trap. And so this is a very much like swing fast, finish with burn, ideally ending quickly. Like you can easily hit for 7+ round 1.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I don't have a ton to add on to this. I'd want to see more Clashing Tempers. I do think it is the card that sets the pace for most of it. A ton of reactions, but it's just like burn with getting out after it. I love decks like this. I don't have the confidence to play them, but I think it's a great deck, and we should see more of this. I hope's not a dead Phoenixborn by any stretch of the imagination.
No, they're definitely a threat. I think one of the things that's interesting about this deck is that I think it demonstrates a style of play that I think under normal circumstances is extremely difficult to pull off, which is what Red King calls his tempo deck series, where you're trying to screw up your opponent's sequencing with Lightbringers, and then on your side actions, and other things to generate threats really quickly. And this is like a tempo deck with training wheels. Like I can't figure out how to play those Red King tempo decks, and it's never pleasant to play against them. But the fact that Hope has access to the Lightbringer duplicate, and then you've got burn to close it, so you're not reliant on simply outthinking your opponent and battlefield sequencing, makes it a lot easier, but it still at its heart has these really powerful tempo tricks in mind, to really make it difficult for your opponent to dictate the pace of a round. Again, keyed off the Lightbringer and then duplicate Lightbringer, that Hope is able to do.
What do you guys?
Yeah, it's got cool.
Sorry, what do you think of the Mirror Spirit, the one of Mirror Spirit in here? That's the only outlier to me.
I don't know.
I'd like to know if he ever actually played it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if he did. I don't remember. It's very interesting to me that it's a one of, it's a 2-lifer. I mean, Hope can swarm a little bit, but then how do you actually get it past anything to do damage? It just, I don't know. I'm not saying I know what I would place instead of, but it just to me is like the one unit that stands out to me as like, I'm surprised that wasn't, I don't know, a Sally or something.
Love throwing it out there.
Frostrog might be
Or Frostfrog.
interesting in
Yeah.
that slot. Yeah.
I love the idea though that it's as far as a summon that it can punch above its weight of 2 dice. It has a tremendous upside, but its floor is also pretty miserable if you just have the one book. Um, so yeah, I'd want to know more what he's thinking of there, and I also want to say too, running this sort of aggro deck, like I want to know how many rounds he played on average with this deck, and the other things I would never say is that it's easy to play a deck like this. You have to concentrate all your energy and focus on probably just the couple turns that you're gonna play, and if you mess up that sequence, it can go bad if you don't draw your burn for sure.
Yeah. The sequencing, especially when you're on a deck that has a lot of one lifers and wants to or has to get those sort of group tactic swings past, is very tricky, knowing when to place them and when not to. Very cool list, though. It appeals to me. Moving on. Deck that I just. I have so much hate for personally. It's No Such Methods, Demona Fallen deck. This is the bane of my existence. Multiple games now. It is 3 Chain of Transfusion, 3 Fallen, and a Lightbringer. It has 15 allies, so Blood Archer, 2 Fire Archers, a Grave Knight, 3 Old Salts, 2 Phoenix Attendant, 2 Wayward Knights, a Ritualist, and 3 Shepherds. And then it has 8 action spells: 8 Blood Chains, Fester, 2 Meteor, 1 Open Memories, 2 Reclaim, and Summon Calamity Golem. 0 reactions. This thing is so frustrating to play against. If you've never played against Fallen, it's just so annoying.
Sheminix, do you want to take this one before I say anything?
Take in enough breaths to get it all out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really strong Fallen list. The Demona fork of kill this ally and charge up my Fallen, or let it live and let me mount it, I think is really cool, and the core of a lot of what this deck is doing. I think it's interesting specifically to analyze it in the context of, well, the 2 games that I think we are collectively most familiar with it. So I think Treatment and I both faced it in, was that in a Pods
Yes.
game?
Yeah.
Or Pods tournament? Yeah. Where we were playing, I think that was when we were playing the Grindy Herald.
Yep.
I think it was like a Divine Sympathy Charm Herald. And it beat both of us. Treatment in a way that has created a lasting trauma. And I think that kind of matchup plays to this deck's strengths. I mean, you can't. It's very, very difficult to outlast Fallen, and Demona is basically more or less unmillable thanks to the Wayward Knights, and the fact that she's constantly putting allies that were mounted back into her hand, and the chance of transfusion. I mean, it's just very difficult to deal with in the long game. Compare and contrast with the game that Killer won against it in the top 8 with the Hope deck, and he just didn't play a long game at all. He finished that game with by round 3, turn 2, with a Final Cry, and he did 6 damage round 1, and was willing to basically play from behind from that point forward. Like, he was basically behind on dice and units from the end of round 1 through the end of the game, but closed it out with burn and some well-timed swings. And I think that's the only way to approach a deck like this. Like, you really have to keep the Demona off the Phoenix Attendants and off the Chain of Transfusion engine to make sure she doesn't heal up out of lethal range. And if you can do that, and you can do enough damage in round 1, I think you can go faster than the main action hungry, Ritualist, Fallen, Open Memories play another Fallen. Like, that's a lot of main actions to set this thing up. So it definitely provides a window to go fast.
I just have one caveat on here. I've never played against this deck, but I love it. I'm going to marry it. Me and Demona have always
You're gonna have little
been.
fallen babies, just little zombie babies.
We've Demona and I have always had a really good relationship, and then seeing it combined with the Fallen is just everything that I love in a deck to make it not fun for my opponent and make it inevitable to win. These are amazing trades that your opponent has to make. Chain of Transfusion is amazing. There's not a card in here that I'm not super excited to see. Plus, a meteor on top of it is just chef's kiss, you know. And then the fun Calamity Golem, eat it. I love it so much.
Yeah, I need to talk to No Such Method because I think he said that he went through the entire Pods tournament without playing the Calamity Golem once. I wonder if he played it at all in the collection.
Yeah. Well, he said I think today or yesterday that it's actually the only card that he was never really excited to see, and that even a couple times when he had it in hand, he didn't play it in favor of other allies to really do its thing. Carl is saying that he was able to beat this deck with Exhaustion Tricks, Sonic Mirror, Bloodchains, and even then it felt like an uphill battle, and so he was super hyped that he was able to take the game. And that's the thing, like this deck, Old Salt gave, and Phoenix Attendant gave this deck so much, particularly Old Salt, because it put more of a stop on the bypass aspect, at least as far as Bear is concerned. And obviously with the Chain of Transfusion gives this deck a lot more removal. I think it either loses to, like Carl said, Exhaustion, but big bypass, so potentially the Hydra list that we saw for Under Rug Swept, or super aggressive mill, because this deck has to play to the board. It doesn't have any burn, doesn't have any mill. This is a board deck, and it's meant to dominate that space. And so if you have Law of Fear and Kneel, like a very prison style deck, I think you can shut this down. It's still a matter of how you actually burn. Get the damage. Yeah. Well, yeah, if you can go fast enough with burn. I mean, I'm not sure how Brennan deals with this, because it still has a lot of punch. Like
I'm thinking of Hope. I mean, that's the burn deck.
Yeah. You got to go fast. All right. We are now on Brian's deck. So this was the second finalist. This is just a really solid list. It's the only list, as far as I know, that is overloaded on the spell board. It's actually so big it's hard to get it on screen. It has a Chain of Transfusion, Adaptodon, Frostback Bear, Snapper, and Turtle as the ready spells. It has 11 allies. So Duelist, Crypt Guardian, Hammer Knight, Old Salt, 3 Old Salts, Pain Shaman, Phoenix Attendant, Herder, Ritualist, and then 9 action spells, an Adrenaline Rush, which is awesome. I love that card. 2 Blood Brawls, a Blood Chains, 2 Channel Magics, a Clashing Tempers, 2 Wraths, and then 5 reaction spells. He actually opted to go with 2 Consume Soul, 2 Fate Reflection, because Brian always has Fate Reflection and Ice Trap.
He needed, I think he said he needed 6 Fate Reflections against Carl's deck.
I mean, saw the list. What do you guys think?
I have a question. So we've been on the Discord, we've been talking a lot about deck archetypes and how to classify them. Would you say this is more aggro, less aggro, or same aggro as Carl's list?
Based off of what I saw, or just the list?
Well, let's assume that what you saw is probably close to the optimal way of playing the list, given that we saw Brian be so yeah, based on what you saw, let's say that.
Do you want to go first, Clue?
Yeah, I think I got my thoughts organized here. I think they're going to be very similar because you're looking at wide versus bypass with the Adaptodon and Bear, right? The chain of transfusion, because it is the side action, that can work for a little bit of bypass too, side action removal. Um, Clashing Tempers does the same. Yeah, I think this probably ends up being about the same because it takes time to build up that wide board too for the big swing. But if I had to decide side by side, I think this deck would be slower than the wide deck. I would think.
Yeah, I think it's slower. I think it's more on the control side, not least because two of the books are with the chant and the turtle are non-offensive. Like in terms of pushing damage across the board, they're much more about controlling and putting up a wall. And then similarly, you have the Crypt Guardian and other control tools here between the action spells that is much more about value trading. And we saw that too from Brian's play. The number of times he would like swing a Frostback Bear into a one lifer just to get it off the board, but then try and gain that round over round advantage. And he was doing that game plan was working against Carl. If if you took a snapshot, I think round two, maybe even midway through round three, just looking at board state, you would have said Brian was going to win the game. And there was just those few turning points with great play, obviously by Carl, but also big turning points in terms of removing Brian's established value that then got him behind. And I think I don't remember for sure, but I think they were saying near the end Brian was remiss about not having his own chant of transfusion against Carl's.
They didn't
But yeah,
first five it. Yeah.
yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think I tend to agree. Well, I would put it this way. I think the overloaded spell board is really interesting because I think it's telling you something about two modes of play that I think the deck is trying to embody. One, a bit more control and defensive with Turtle Guard, which is what Brian opted to play against Carl's list. And I think Turtle Guard extremely valuable, especially against an opponent who wants to win with a swing and has Lightbringer. And then he's definitely got the more aggressive Adaptodon Frostback Bear. I'd be really curious what situations he's first fiving Snapper. I just don't know right now what that looks like. But
Same.
I think the thing I'd key into is, and yeah, far be it for me to question anything here, but I'd be curious to hear what his experience was of using channel magic. It's got 2 consumed souls already in it, so it's got a fair bit of healing, and I feel like it can go pretty fast. It certainly has some heavier power needs with the 1x Adrenaline Rush if you're playing the Turtle Guards and Snappers regularly on just 2 time dice. But I'd just be curious how much value he actually got with that channel magic.
I think he probably got, like, I've seen Brian play channel magic quite a few times in his different decks, and to me it's the answer of not only being able to meditate the dice you need for the Snapper, the Turtle Guard, but also that draw is pretty important. Like I mean, it's
He's
not
got a
like
lot of
he's,
one-ofs, which I
yeah.
could then imagine the draw being useful for.
So a lot of answers that you're looking for, and not that 11 allies is too few, but also you have 9 action spells where you're most of them are depending on units. So Clashing Tempers, you need something on the board. Blood Brawl, you need something on the board. Blood Chains, you need something on the board. Adrenaline Rush. So it's like you want to make sure that you're drawing into those allies to keep them on the board, especially if he starts with Chant of Transfusion, right? Then you only got two books.
Also, shout out for playing Pain Shaman. That unit is sweet. It's really hard to feel like it's useful to carry, but like And I don't think you generally want to be carrying more than one. But that was in the killers like Xander list, and it always feels good to play. Just about. I mean, the combination of healing, removal, and a body that's hard to remove on the flip side is nice.
Abby loves it. I think it's a cool unit. Yeah. Clue, you got anything else
Is it
to
a
say
little?
about this list?
Uh, Not enough butts in the title.
Big butts, dino butts, skinny turtle butts. How skinny is the turtle guard butt? I guess the seafoam snapper's the skinny turtle butt.
Probably, yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
Okay.
fair. I would never say that to its face, though.
I don't want to body shame a snapper like that. That doesn't seem right.
No, it's weird.
All right. Here we have arguably one of the coolest lists. So this is Waves, his Echo that has 2 gravity training books, a card I don't know the last time we saw it played, period, much less competitively, which is awesome. And so he also took this deck like what to top 8, I believe. So
Yeah, he
yeah,
topped 8. Yeah.
awesome.
And I think he was 4-0. I think he was undefeated in
Yeah, I think he had the highest, or sorry, the second highest seeding. Yeah, really cool list. So it's got 2 gravity training, a frost frog, and a Linus, 13 allies, which seems to be the theme for this collection. Like sort of more utility spells and then a ton of allies to back it up. It's got an Ember Heart, Fire Archer, 2 Grave Knights, a Hammer Knight, an Iron Worker, Jungle Forager, 3 Old Salt, 2 Polarity Mage, and a Shepherd. And then alterations, there's a Glaciate, which, again, another card we don't see enough, and he had some really cool tricks with it. A Power Through, a Wall Up, a Will to Survive, and then 7 action spells, which are Call Upon the Realms, 3 Chaos Gravity, Clashing Tempers, 1 Molten, Nature's Wrath, and finally 2 reactions, an Angelic Rescue and an Ice Trap.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that my kiddo is sleeping at the other end of the house, so I can only do it this loud. But Waves, if you're watching this, boo, boo, boo. Okay, all right. Our blood feud's still continuing. I may have played him during the collection, but I didn't actually. I don't think he put gravity training in play versus me, because I was surprised when I saw it on the list. But what I will say is that I underestimated Frost Frog multiple times, every time that I've seen on the board. And you made a comment about seeing so many allies. It's because the allies are getting more useful in their own right. Like the Emberheart, he actually snapped that one back to play it again against me after I got rid of it the first time. And I love the Glaciate. I think that's a wonderful offensive and defensive spell. It works great with Chaos Gravity. And then I know Clashing Tempers got me. I'm so mad now knowing that he only had one of those. But it's it's a it's a very cool deck. It feels like a good classic deck with like Knights and Echo in there, with a little bit of throwback of gravity training, and I would love to have seen it in play. I want to see it in action.
So in your blood feud with Waves, and relating it to your favorite card, Clashing Tempers, are you Rin or Lulu in that blood feud?
Ooh.
I think I have to be Lulu. Like, I'm mad. I'm going to throw a huge temper tantrum. I'm going to be the most incendiary, and then I'm just going to get splatted by Rin's Ice Blast that he's got now. So it's not going to really work.
And Waves is from the Great White North. He's up here with me, so there you go. It's suitable. Yeah, this list is cool. I mean, it feels like a deck that has, I don't know, like so many minor twists to what a normal build might be. it's one thing if you say, okay, it's got the gravity training, but then it also has a glaciate. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. And then it's got the just one Shepherd of Lost Souls and one Jungle Forager to sort of cycle those things, and two Polarity Mages. Like it just has all these things, and then one Angelic Rescue, but it all worked obviously really well. Echo is and has been underplayed for at least a few months now, I think. And so it's really cool to see this list work, and I'm interested to see what he does with it if he iterates based off of his games and which the matchup that he lost, like what he would change to this. But I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's another one of these decks that I would feel intimidated playing. I just Echo. I'm really glad Echo got played. I think it's really cool.
Got played, or like got played, sucker, like that type of like.
No, he got played. I wish I'd been able to see it. The only game I watched Waves play with this was against Carl's Herald list, which I feel like is just a very rough go. And so I got to see some of the glaciate tricks. Like he used that to try and slow the board down, I thought, in interesting ways. But I feel like I didn't really get to see what the deck probably really wants to do. So I kind of want to see this. Want to see this played again. I really want to know if at any point he actually used Echo's gravity flexibility to temporarily exhaust something to send it to gravity training camp.
Yeah, for sure. Because that is the way you use the card. All right.
Can I make a proposal? Given how many decks there are to go through in the remainder, I wonder if could we just nominate a couple to talk about?
Yeah. Now that I think that was the top 8, right? So we'll
that was the top 8. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. So we'll scroll quickly through the decks just to see what everyone else brought, because these ones we didn't actually even get to see played. Waves, by the way, he says he actually did do that trick against Charlotte. So there you go. Yeah. So let's just we'll scroll through these and see, if there's any particular one that you guys find really interesting or that you know of that you want to talk about, then we can do that. And same thing in the audience, to anybody still watching, if you guys want to talk about or hear us talk about a specific deck, then stop us.
Just as a quick look just at the top 8 real quick, I do want to say, so if I have to say something like there is no meta, I can at least try and say there are more tendencies in decks if there isn't an exact deck. And I can say this from bringing in a bunch of tiny bunnies into this tournament. I was blown away by the sheer number of knights in ping. If you take a look at the top 8, the only deck that wasn't doing that was the burn deck.
I guess the Koji.
Otherwise,
the Koji deck didn't have any real, big knights in ping.
I mean, Huntmaster, Wolf Leader, I guess not strictly knights, because you also see the return of the Sleeping Widows in the top 8. I don't remember if we've seen Widows for a really long time be used this effectively and this often in decks. So those are the two takeaways for the top 8 for me.
Well, I mean, Old Salt. I don't remember who did the math. I think it was Dubious Archive, and it was out of the top 8, there was whatever it was, 17 or 20 Old Salts, and generally 3 of in all the top 4 lists. So yeah, there's that's the meta. It's the Old Salt meta. All right, so I'm not gonna go through every card, but I'll go through the general idea of each deck. So this is TZO. I still don't know how to pronounce it. We're gonna have to come up. So, yeah, sure.
Right.
So, sure. So this is Il Tricolore. It's a Herald list, and it's Bear Lightbringer Lioness. It's just a solid this is similar list to what we've seen all year round. It's really good stuff. I like the addition of Linus for more stock and control, and he also has a cheeky Adrenaline Rush in here, which is cool because Adrenaline Rush was not a card that we've seen a lot of, and now we've seen at least what this is the third copy. Um, so it's really cool. And again, just like some knights and phoenix attendants and whatever. This is a solid
One
list.
to three chance of transfusion short of the top 8.
Also got the memo about running less than 3 consumed souls somehow. Did Heralds have a meeting that we missed out on?
Apparently,
They're like, we've been eating too many souls. We got to go on a soul diet.
uh, yeah, like there's nothing.
Yeah, hot vampire summer.
There's I don't. There's nothing bad about this list. Like it's just a classic good stuff list, and I think we could bring it exactly the same to another tournament and do well.
I mean, I said it flippantly, but like the answer is run Chant of Transfusion. Like drop the Lioness, run Chant of Transfusion, or overclock the spell board if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know. I think you need Chant of Transfusion.
You love that card. All right. Oh, by the way, Wave said that he did it with a Winged Lioness to stock an exhausted Frostback Bear, and then he transferred the Gravity Training over to an Emberheart.
Sick.
Yeah. And his Carl's favorite list is the Excavate Noah, which we'll come across. So, very quick on my lists because I'm still annoyed, and I'm gonna have to commentate the game before I upload it. But this list was something I had been playing with a little bit. It's a burn list. It's Brennan, and it did well enough that in the panic to submit at 11 o'clock before the tournament, before German changed the due date twice, this is what I put up there in the midst of lack of sleep. And I just wanted to try Brennan. I thought that there was still a possibility of playing the classic burn with a little bit of a twist, and that twist being not running sympathy or charm but illusion instead, mainly for Stormwind Sniper, which I thought was good battlefield control against the presumed Frostback Bear meta, and a Spectral Assassin, which also was a good call when I wanted to do a rush start with herders. So yeah, it performed better than I thought. I went 2-2. I had the bye, and realistically, I should have beat Carl, but I whiffed. I didn't see the winning line of play, and so
bold claim.
Yeah, you'll see it. I talked with him at length about it, and he's just like, "You got to let it go, man." So I have yet to let it go. Did he
charge by the hour or not?
Yeah, I haven't let it go a month later. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Anything special? Complete trash?
It's super bold to throw out those 2 wallops with your only bypass being the bear. Now again, though, no one's going to expect it, so I can see it getting in for some damage, especially like seeing some of the other decks that are running the widows. Like no widows. I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, I found just in general, because we'll scroll past it, I've found that Wallop is a better card when it is a surprise on smaller units, like playing it on top of the actual herder instead of whatever, and when you're going wide and then they have to choose between killing the hatchling or a herder, which you can then recur, and whatever your third unit is, it's kind of nice. All right, then we get Brancus's Brennan burn, and this I think is a little more typical to or closer in spirit to what JK was running. It's got 3 Chin of Revenge, a single Lightbringer, and then 14 allies. So it's got the Old Salts and the Fire Archers and a Hunt Master opening, 3 Molten, and then the full burn suite, plus 3 Sleeping Widows. So Sleeping Widows definitely made a comeback. This was a very fast list when he won, as far as I know. And when he lost, it's because it's a lot of 1-butts and no books.
Yeah, with the amount of ping out there, it's tough to keep any sort of board sticky out there, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this is the kind of deck where what was the life nerf on Brennan? Was it 2?
2, yeah.
Like, I can imagine that being the difference in a not insignificant number of matchups running this deck.
I think it's the biggest issue to her success right now. The 3 obviously
Yeah.
combined to make it, but like the fact that her life also went down when she now has to rush but doesn't have the life to support it
Yeah.
is the issue. But yeah, I mean, I think it still works. It's just it's more draw dependent and rush dependent. Then we get Apple Sith, who also ran a fallen list. I think he basically took no such methods list and made a few changes to include Guilt Link instead of like he went with Sympathy instead of Divine. So this is cool. It gives him the Essence Druid for recurring, and a Blood Archer. Is a nice throw in there. A Master Vampire. So he's got more knights, I think, in here, and he also has the Summon Calamity Golem, which is neat.
He's also got the Sleeping Widows for the Guilt Link side action into Sleeping Widows
Yep.
play, which is pretty sweet. I color me skeptical about whether the 3 Guilt Links. I guess maybe he's not. I'd have to analyze what the first 5 is. I imagine he's not consistently first 5ing the Guilt Link, so that's a draw into consideration. But that feels tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say about the other Demona deck, I'd almost rather see another Charm die in there to get more Enchanted Violinist, because Enchanted Violinist and Demona is just baller. Just ping damage, a dude ready to go to get mounted later on in the next turn. So good.
For sure. Yeah. That I mean it's such a shame we can't see all these games. We need
Yeah.
the ability to have an impartial recorder.
At least give me the chat logs. But yet another deck with 13 allies. I mean,
yeah. Well, it makes
I really
sense.
think you're onto something. That, I mean, there are probably 6 decks with fewer than double-digit allies in the whole tournament.
Underrugs is the main like contrarian to the theme so far.
Well, I would say we haven't gotten there, but Lark's deck that runs not a 1 ally.
Yeah. Okay, so we got some comments. Shadow finally joined. Thanks for starting so late,
thanks.
Shadow. Jeez, just got your priorities wrong. We've got Charlotte's list, which is Cole, the blade itself, and it's in. I mean, she's got Butterfly Monk, Frostback Bear, Lightbringer, and Miss Spirit. So really, sort of more of a solid board, very flexible. 8 allies, includes an Ember Heart and a Hammer Knight in there. 5 alterations. So the Root Armor, I can understand the influence there. And then 10 action spells, which includes the 3 Clashing Tempers. So Clue, you'll be happy there. A Spectral Assassin, a single Figures in the Fog, and of course, 2 Particle Shields. Because what would a Charlotte list be without those? I have no idea how, like, what her record was, how she fared, what her games were like, or who she faced. But to me, it seems like a good list.
I want to know if she didn't run so she beat me with a similar list like this, but leaned more into the Law of Sight, and which against my like 12 million reactions that I run in a deck, it was just awful, right? I wonder if she didn't run the Law of Sight because she wanted to play Particle Shields. I want to know that. I want to know if that was the difference on there, because I think with the Law of Sights in here, I mean, I really like this deck. I think it's amazing.
Cool deck. It is a little light on units, I think, at least relative to some of these others. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got the 4 spell board, obviously, so that's great. But maybe it's just light on allies. I don't know.
It's light on light respectively to the other list, but I mean, you're putting out potentially 5 units just off your spell board for 6 dice every round. and then
Okay, I retract.
yeah, done a little bit.
I'm light on energy to continue.
All right, let's.
I'm gonna power through.
That's a, yeah, you
I
better.
mean, it's only 9:20 here in Colorado, so
All right, we've got Lark's infamous mono illusion. This list, just looking at it, it's still like it makes me think
agreeing.
that a new player put together a bunch of cards, and yet this is one of the most irritating lists to play against. It's so
Again,
cool.
you go to the topic of I wish I could see these games. I don't know. Like, was it just matchup dependent? Was it just running into like not too many nights? Was that the issue or not? Like
Like
I don't
why
know.
didn't do as well this time as in the pods?
He lost to
Yeah, I
me
want to see
in
what's
one
going on.
match. I don't know what his others were like. And it just lost
What
to.
was the key to your victory in that one? I guess you had the surprise you were able to punch the burn through despite the spin down.
It was yeah, I did a herder spectral assassin open,
Hmm.
and the the spectral assassin was the key there because it stops Shadowblade dead, and well, with 18 reaction spells, so I was able to punch a lot of damage through round one. I don't remember, but I have the game, which I'll eventually get to. So that was the trick. I think it's similar
That's very
that you
cool.
just go if you go fast, then you can beat it, and if you're low to the ground to make before it gets focused to make it not valuable. He said he would switch to 3 Miss Spirit books. That's the edit he's going to do to that, so that he just has more
Interesting.
What?
bodies. Yeah, that's what he said. So that we'll see in the next pod or whatever. He's going to go with 3 Miss Spirit books.
I mean, I yeah. I just think about Carl's list on the Herald and like how much removal he pumps out with, just needing one class die for Old Salt plus the chance always being up. Now there's not much to actually remove here, but those will turn off the particle shields, and if the Shadow Hounds ever swing, they'll knock them away pretty quickly. It also ignores the fate reflections, so I could imagine it struggling. Phoenix Pods won.
He won
We
versus
would have
Killer,
had the
who
would
wasn't.
that were the chants out then?
I think so.
The chant of transfusion. Okay.
I don't remember if he was running it. I know he was on. Wasn't a Mirror Spirit
Yeah.
list anyway. Um, moving on because I don't want you to fall asleep. Like I said, Flora's list. We knew it. We knew she would run her girl Aradel, and this is called Snowy Shadow. It has the blue jaguar in here. It's got a Frost Frog, Gilder, 3 Mirror Spirits. So it's very similar to a list that she ran a while back, but this time she's running it with the Jaguar and the Frost Frog as I guess the updates. But she also has 2 Glaciates in here. So I guess I'm surprised because I didn't test or really have played Glaciate at all. But this is now the second list we're seeing it. There's something to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I got to play Flora in our infamous for last place game of the tournament, and it's a legit deck. There's some good stuff happening here. I like the good mix. Again, clashing tempers is just a nightmare to deal with. The blue jaguar. I know, man. I know you got to stand by your stand, but it'll get better. I hope. I think. I don't know. But it's a very scary deck to play against for sure.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on it, but I like everything else, and I like the idea of glaciating a Mirror Spirit so it can't get killed. That type of thing. Or your
It does make me think about the company. Yeah, it does make me wonder about combination of focused Mirror Spirits, token tricks like Explosive Growth, and maybe Ocean's Gift and Rejuvenate, since you could theoretically, swing a Mirror Spirit with say 1 or 2 tokens on it, exhaust something with your next mirror spirit, rejuvenate that mirror spirit, and that had 0 tokens and still create it into a threat. So, but that's not what this list is doing.
No, that's a neat idea though. That's a neat idea. Using the focus effect to put it back to 0 for a free rejuvenate.
Yeah,
that's cool. I like that. Get to work.
Okay.
You're the hero deck builder of the Trick or Treat season, so there you go. When the Santa, I forget what the Secret Santa list comes around, you gotta build that. All right, Clue.
Okay.
Your time to shine, buddy. Here we go. Exploding Wish Bunnies Mark II. Only Mark II.
Yeah.
No, that's 11. I'm just kidding. That's Mark II.
Technically, it is like Mark 6 or 7, but for simplicity's, I just put 2. Because I start off with Reimagine, and I still miss Reimagine in this list. But no, this deck did really well. I mean, if you want to like 1 win for the tournament, if you want to take that as really well. But the thing is, like, I never felt blown out of a game except for the Echo game. That one was rough.
Against Waves.
Yep, against Waves. But every other game though, I was just 1 body on the field short. And so that's on me. I need to figure out what to make that change in there. But that's where I ran into, where it's just a bunch of knights and a bunch of ping with so many 1-butts running around.
Yeah, you don't have much hard removal here, right? I mean,
no.
It's Excavate to Shadows is kind of your...
It's bodies, right? It's all the hoppers and the wings that you're going to swing into. Like, it's a control deck. It really is. It's a control deck. You attack their units until you get a time to explode for the big hit. That's all it is. And again, I will say this deck did really well. It was always just short 1 or 2 bodies every round, it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, I like this list. I think you're very close to something, like in terms of the next mono deck that could take it. I think it is a mono time deck, and it probably is in Noah just because everything works. The only thing I'm wondering is how else you can try and protect. Maybe we'll have to wait until the very end when the time expansion comes out, but how to protect some of those bodies without something like Particle Shield, which would naturally tie into the whole theme.
Yeah, 100%. It draws a ton of cards. A third Fate Reflection honestly feels like the difference at times. Yeah. If I could channel some Matt Bauer energy, the game's changed just like that. So yeah, I was really happy with it, actually. It did really well, even though I didn't get the result I wanted.
This, I guess,
I mean,
this is Carl's
the level of
list.
competition. That's cool. The level of competition in the tournament was incredibly high, so getting a win, Laura is an incredible player, and so are you, and the two of you were, playing at 0-3, 0-4.
Hey, you know what I just remembered? I've been playing in so many games, in so many tournaments. That was our game for the Trick or Treat tournament that I was talking about.
Oh. Okay. All right, we'll send a redaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think this is really cool, and I think if there's one card that I feel like it's consistently been underplayed, but really has fallen off post status token, with the death of Snappermander or Value Town, is Flash Strike. You just never see that card anymore. It's so cool.
Flash Strike, yeah. Flash Strike is always, it hurts because it does exactly what you said, like the control kills a knight, something like that. You're like, oh man, or you take 4 to the face and you're just like, oh man, it's never good.
Yeah. You can tell when you're playing this deck. So I ended up getting 2 wins with this for the tournament. And you can tell how well you're doing in the game by the number of Fate Reflections, the number of Flash Strikes and the number of Shadow Blades you've drawn. That's pretty much it. right? The books look really cool, but it's those two cards that get you the win.
Carl in
Interesting.
chat is saying that he thinks adding a divine or illusion for second color would do a lot to this list. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
That's not the point, Carl. All right.
But it should be. I think it's gone. I think it's gone its natural route. Let's go ahead and start messing with it, right?
That's true. All right. It looks like we're near the bottom of the page, so we only got a couple lists left. We've got Asterix list. He played an Echo. We love Donnie. And it's interesting. He's running 1 Adaptodon and 3 Mirror Spirits, 11 allies. In this case, we're seeing Knowledge Seeker, I think, for the first time in one of the lists, a Crystal Armor for the first time in one of these lists, I believe, and then 3 Neils, which is interesting. And this is
Fascinating.
yeah, a 5-color list. 3 of those are splashes. This is a very different list than what we've seen.
I love the pivot. I love the. So I got to play against this one right after I played Waves. I got to play a second Echo deck. The Neil got me. I was coming around round 4 or something like that. I'm like, okay, things are looking good. Knelt me out, and that was it. Like it was such a nice overall play to put in there, especially when you've already got adapted on in Mirror Spirits. It's just cool.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I mean, Asterix, yeah, I feel weird. I mean, obviously, I guess our job slash the thing that we have nominated ourselves to do is comment on these things, and not having submitted a list, I feel a little odd doing it, especially
Complete
for such great
phony.
players. I know, but I mean, we're all playing phonies, right? That's you pick a phony and you play the game. Couple things I like the alteration choices, specifically the inclusion of crystal armor over something like Will to Survive, and I think it's the first time I've ever really thought about it. Like, I think you'd really, really have to be committed to the reaction speed of crystal armor to ever pick that over Will to Survive, especially in a deck that's so nature heavy. Um, but also the lack of explosive growth, because like I could see a situation like the one we just described where you kneel your opponent out, um, get a mirror spirit, and are potentially able to land the explosive growth for lethal, like with that there are timing issues given the side action constraints, but it's just interesting to me that that's not the direction Asterix went.
Yeah.
Well, and look at how big the units are, right? Like there's not a knight really, except for the Ember Heart. That guy gets huge or can get huge, especially with Wallop. Um, but like none of those, I don't think any of those alterations even entered play in our game, except for maybe Root Armor. They got passed around, but it was like the Adaptodon passing his stuff off to the Ember Knight, which all of a sudden you're looking at a 5 strength dude, and that's a threat you got to deal with. But everyone else is meh for the most part, right? You're not really scared of them. The Mirror Spirit there is just the tremendous upside, but a very low floor too. If it hits right with your Neils, it's a game over. I think that's how he ended me, actually. He got me on 6 Neils, and then Mirror Spirit swung for a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so Carl said Flux plus Neil is a really underplayed combo. And I can see that Neil here, it can really hurt you, especially if you do want to go. But I don't know. Maybe Adaptodon is enough. Like between that and Clashing Tempers, it's enough control. But I do think that either explosive growth, or given that you're playing Crystal Armor most likely at reaction speed, Ocean's Gift might be better, and then at least you're helping dice fix the 5 spread that you have. And it's still, worst case one damage, whatever, but it could also buff the Mirror Spirits or otherwise, and Ember Heart's got the tricks. So interesting. And you would get reuse out of it, but I it just feels pulled in a few too many directions to me. Obviously, he makes it work, and Asterix is a very good player, but I think it could use a little bit of editing down to the core concept. Let's
Not at
see.
all like this show.
You're part of it now, so self burn. All right. Oh, this is the last list. There you go. Actually, it's not the last list, but we'll save the best for last. Uh-oh. Oh, the page is not redrawing. There we go. Ninja's list. So we've got another Hope here. Hope I draw well. And in this case, it's not a mono, but it is 7 time and 3 illusion. We've got a very punchy spell. Like this is 15. This compared to everything else, which was ally heavy, this is hugely ready spell heavy. 3 fighting spirits, 3 Seafoam Snapper, 3 Shadow Hounds, 3 Time Hoppers, 3 Wishing Wing. Like just all in on the duplicate and fast punch plan. 4 allies, 3 action spells, and then 8 reactions. The 3 fate reflections are really there to protect everything, and some standstills to get the damage past. So this is a really cool list. Like it's very similar, I guess, to yours, Clue, but in a different way.
I want to know who. Again, I want to know how these games turned out. There's a ton of ping out there, but it should have enough books to being drawn into. Did the draw? Yeah, this is very draw dependent, but that's okay because you've got the Void Pulse to draw, you've got Excavates, and you've got Wishing Wing themselves. Yeah, I don't think you probably need that much illusion, but I want to see what happened with this deck.
If it wasn't 3 a.m., we could ask Ninja, how did you lose? Because it's a good list. The Jackie Chan meme, like, why you fail? Yeah, it's cool.
Is it the Shadow Hounds? It's probably the Shadow Hounds. Let's be honest here. Like,
I'd let him down.
Cool.
Maybe. Yeah, three dice. You're only getting 1 hound out, so at best you're getting, and then you can't. I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right.
You can copy it with Hope. I don't know if you need 3 Shadow Hounds, but you want the 3 books to do the ping damage, right?
Yeah.
How many Nature's Wraths are there in this tournament? I didn't see too many.
Sounds like a job for somebody who does graphs and charts. That's what we're promising the folks, is a follow-up summary, but in graph form, so you don't have to listen to us for an hour and a half. You could just see a chart. Here's the stats.
Picture is worth 1,000 words in roughly 2 hours of us meandering.
Was it
talk to each other?
We need Kyla back. He was the one who did all the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, stupid flesh and blood. All right. Alfred's Astria quest ends in heartbreak. I feel like Alfred's just a man ahead of his time. Like, pull out the Astria decks once, you can judgment everything into oblivion, and it's going to be a different story.
It's going to be the case. It felt like me on Noah. Like last year I was Noah every single Shuffle Bus tournament, and he just didn't do it. And now Shadowblade came, and I think I nearly stopped playing him. But every time I go back to him at least once or twice, it works. But I've given up on him. Astria, Alfred's just, I don't know. Like he has so many good ideas, and then he runs into a bad matchup. And like we've talked about all these lists, every single deck is good, and it's the competition that's just so high. And he just cashed right out. Doesn't want to even show us the goods. So I don't know what he played. Did you guys?
I'd say almost every deck is good. There's that one Brennan that runs the illusion die that.
Yeah, I did mark this video as not safe for kids, but I'll refrain from any hand gestures.
There are 8 decks, by the way, that have Nature's Wrath. I did play against Alfred round 1. And it was he had me down on time. The blood points don't even come close to showing how close that game was. Not really, at all. He had enough exhausting tech and enough dudes out there to ping away my guys. Again, just knights with ping with Astria on top of it. So, no, his deck wasn't bad at all.
I definitely think she's gonna have her time very soon, and it's potentially disastrous, like at least compared to the current meta, because you cannot go wide. You can't risk building up that control board. You're just gonna get wiped. Um, Here's a question for you: between, let's say, Meteor, Neil, and the upcoming Judgment, what is the most feel bad area of effect based off of your personal play styles and decks that you like to run?
Creeper. Oh wait.
I haven't even felt bad from Judgment yet.
Well, I don't know. You might have.
It's the card I've always wanted. It's the card I've always wanted in Ashes, but I'm now finally getting. I think it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be terrible all at the same time. I don't know how it's not immediately chained. The reason I think it's going to be rougher to take it from Judgment is because, at least with Meteor, if you had even a little bit of spin down, you had some protection, like a little bit, but not against Judgment. So we'll see how it goes.
Shadow
Yeah,
wants
I think
me,
Judgment's gonna be rough.
yeah, he wants me to say that Astria will bring judgment to this community. There you go. Just for you,
I
Shadow.
believe it. Um,
You want some, Astria? All right.
so any other? I'd be curious what y'all. Okay, no meta, whatever, but like, there's definitely some meta, and I'm curious what you all make of any key lessons to take away from the collection, and like, where is the game poised at this moment on the cusp of the charm cycle?
It's it's well, we've talked a little bit about it, but if I look over a longer time span, like going back a year, let's say, to what was a very swarmy meta, there was a lot more hope. There was, I feel like, a lot more rush. Naturally, there was more burn because things hadn't been eroded yet. And now we moved into slower games, more control, more knights. We're seeing those now. A year ago, I remember Fester was everywhere, and you never wanted to run a knight. And now they're very heavy in certain lists. I think that's going to make Charm very interesting because that naturally it works like everywhere. Nerfing either a knight or nerfing cheap units, either way is good for you. There's not really any new mill tricks, so it's going to lead to very interesting push and pull sort of control games where you're leaning on either bypass to get your own stuff through, or maybe you do go with like was it Venom Strike? Was that Mayoni? The
Yeah,
one you guys hate.
mayonnaise.
Well, not, I don't know how Clue feels, but I know you killer hate it. You could do that.
Have we
So
released that episode yet?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think we did. Okay.
yeah. Allie worked hard on it. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's gonna shake things up. Oh, Carl's getting very
I
bossy. He says kneel for me. So anyway.
I want to see the comeback. I want to see the triangle of the three ways to win, right? Between bypass, burn, and mill or fatigue. I want to see the fatigue get more attention. I think these batch fatigue cards are going to be cool. I think they're going to be flashy. And I think ultimately, like what happened last time when Aradel was at the top of her game with Foggy Bear, right? What knocked her out of contention?
I don't
Like
remember.
how
It was
how that
Brennan.
changed
Well, it was
more.
Brennan. That was JK.
Yeah, I guess that. Yeah,
Okay, so then I think we're getting closer to this mid ground again with the knights, and I think we'll probably end up going aggro is going to be the next trend with charm being put in there because I think there's some interesting things you can do with charm, even though that the badger is going to slow some things down, the charm die itself, but they still have to use the dice to do that. That's me my prediction.
is
Aggro charm, let's go.
is charm enough to knock Harold down a peg or two? Like he's sitting pretty much at the top right now in terms of the meta. Is it enough to reduce the value that Mark Prey gets? I mean, you still have
Uh,
ping, but at least as far as swinging, does it do enough?
I
So if
think.
you,
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Clue.
no, I go for it. Go for it. I'm still forming.
I think. I think the question is, does the charm wave add enough tools to mill decks that punish you for destroying their stuff and generally don't offer a lot of value? So like the Orchid Dove decks, for example, that blunts Herald's value. And let's not forget, you know, um Gardner both putting some downward pressure on Chant of Transfusion. I don't know how much it's going to be in the end, but I think what it felt like to me was that Carl's deck was designed to win um, in any situation where decks are trying to generate their threats on the battlefield, and the deck has a good enough, probably more than good enough in the current meta, answer to burn just in terms of its ability to stack threats. I'd be curious to know what happens when that deck goes up against something that's really aggressively milling and is denying the value of some of those some of that removal, both because it just that's not really the game plan it's on. I think it would fundamentally come down to whether or not that mill deck can survive, since the Herald builds a board pretty quickly. It's still got the aggressive game plan. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think ultimately it doesn't do anything against Harold.
It's fair,
I,
yeah.
I just don't because you got to spend the dice to make that happen, right? While you're spending those dice, Harold can continue to work on this, develop its 2-for-1ing you, right? Like, yeah, Harold can get milled. I've seen it, I guess, but I don't think this Carl deck cares. I think it's got very few power sides that it's really working with, and I think it's probably fine.
but I guess the other way to look at it is, I think I think this is a mistake I make a lot. It's not. I think the best answers are going to be, what are the one or two cards in the set that you add to an existing archetype that make it that's already close to the top of the heap, and that make it really strong. And I think I'd have to think more about that. I'm not sure what that is. I wonder if, just classic Maoni decks, for example, get something out of the availability of some of the cards that are coming into the pool. And we see Snake again, although Snake historically does not fare well into Herald.
Yeah, I think Astria could do it though. Like the ability to exhaust, and then if you're also packing things like farewell,
That's
uh,
true.
it
When you're
you
trying to
can
stack up a volume, yeah,
right. You
a volume
eliminate
of
all the
units.
chump guys, and then if they try and build up even 2 or 3 units of any significant
Well,
value, you wipe it for free, or not for free,
just
like but like for better value.
well, just think how good Astria is gonna be if you go Nature's Wrath, Judgment. You get your Glaciates out, then her own ability, so you can one die pick off their massive threats. Like Well, what do you
And
have
Law of
left?
Fear. I mean, I think you don't even need to remove everything potentially.
Yeah.
Like even just the way Law of Fear interacts with Judgment, where they're gonna have to bring volume to try and compensate, or in height she generally has covered already with her ability, at least the first tall unit. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the answer.
I think Farewell will see play everywhere. Rose Gardener, I think, is definitely going to be a strong consideration if if the trend of Chant of Transfusion and or Fallen stay, because it doesn't hurt to just have a body that can also at least delay something. And if you are heavy in charm, you know it has to be answered. Like, it's good self-meting. um I've already said my thoughts on like Dealer's Choice and the others. I'm interested to see where Saria or Soraya place. Like, I her her removal is a good card. I don't think it pushes her into any new direction necessarily. And similarly with Leo, I'm still not sure if he's going to show up as more aggro. I do think we'll see more focused Mindfog Owl, um, and perhaps an increase in some, not like full prison decks, but definitely that like Law of Fear, lock down their unit type of decks.
If you make Captivate playable, you've got my vote for set of the year right there. I love that card, and I've only gotten to play it in Ashcon. I think I played it in Ashcon too, which I almost won my pod with.
Books can kill, right?
I think we'll still be waiting for Captivate's relevance. That's my prediction. I don't know.
All right. We should probably wrap it up. I'm just gonna catch
Yeah,
up
speaking of heavy on charm, I think we've done it.
Clue has charmed us to the 2 hour mark. Carl just quickly said Farewell and Rose Gardner getting around the round one ritualist old salt play is a big deal, which I agree.
Yeah.
And then Shadow said you could also go with Dealer's Choice plus Astria's ability to exhaust 2 units of your choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So exhaustion, I think, will be potentially higher in the coming games, which, anytime you have something that pushes the meta in one direction, you have the natural elastic band type of counterplays. So maybe cards like Fester will be more important, more self clear, so even more blood chains and the like, um, to make sure that you always have the spots open to keep your threats up. Who knows? We're gonna have to see. A couple weeks away.
All right.
All right. So we did it. This is the first live one. It was fun. Gotta do it again.
Frog up, wolf down, snake out. Not janky or stanky.
We're keeping. All right.
Cool. Gross. Let's let Schmendrix go to bed. He's dying over there, man.
You can sign off however you like, Clue. Tell people about your channel. Get them all over there. Let's get that count up to 100.
Hey guys, if you pop over just to my name, Jerod Leupold, over at YouTube, I stream pretty much all my tournament games, so you can check it out there. I'm gonna get better about having a goal. I guess I've heard people do that, and I've heard that's usually a good thing. So I'm gonna try and make some goals for myself this year, and see if we can do some more.
Yeah, maybe we can figure this communal game replays so that we get more content to actually watch too. Who knows? All right, guys. Thanks.
Cool. Later.
Later.
Bye.